Fear me, dragonkin soldier. Our battle will be legendary. Well, I guess, well, I destroyed him, right, guys? Hello, my fellow tarnished. Today, I want to bring you something cool. Real cool. It's an ice Ash of War, so that way when I said real cool and did ice, it became funny and entertaining. You're welcome, please subscribe. Alright guys, so this Ash of War Ice Spear has always been pretty good, but two things. Number one, it is particularly boostable in how much damage it can do through some surprising methods, and two, it got buffed in the latest patch. So that, combined with its already naturally fast cast time, decent range, makes it an absolutely monstrous tool, not just for killing things generally as you go through your journey, go through the world, but in PvP, becomes a case of basically just connect with this and you've won the fight. If it doesn't one-shot them, it'll make it so your follow-up weapon attack will, and with this build your follow-up weapon attack is ridiculously powerful as well, so it all just becomes this really fun kind of ice battle sorcerer stabby man. I really need better build names. Ice battle sorcerer stabby man! And of course you want to know how to be an ice sorcerer stabby battle man, and that's what I'm going to present to you today. So, as I said, Ice Spear is the Ash of War. You get this from a Knight's Cavalry, of course, at night, in Liurnia of the Lakes, just here, nothing too complex to go grab. How it works is you do a little spin up, and then throw a short-ish, but still okay, range ice javelin at the target, which will build up massive frostbite, like we're talking 2 hits, and then frostbite, you're good, and hit like a freight train, which is a fantastic little combination, now isn't it? But the patch then, yes, added actual damage to the spinning part. And you might think, is that really a big deal? You're throwing this at range, but it is a big deal. Not only is it extra damage, which is obviously lovely, it's not crazy damage, it's just like a bonus 300-400, but the main advantage here is that it's damage, and therefore staggers, and staggers quite well, which means when someone's up in your face, you can actually use this now because it will hit them, flinch them, long enough for you to then do the follow-up throw, which will presumably kill them. And the actual stagger in general on the ice lance here is really, really good. Like a couple hits and the enemy will go down, even the big boys. It's really, really useful, and I think this is one of the most underrated Ashes of War in the game, and well, that's why I'm here to, really push it as far as possible and share the results with you. And the thing is, it's magic damage, and magic is not only the element that most enemies in the game aren't resistant to, it's also very, very buffable. Because it's a ranged attack, combining it with something like Terra Magica of the Zone on the Floor for 35% more damage is very doable, at least outside of PvP, and that really combines with it well. But first and foremost, what weapon are we going to put this on? I mean, as you've been seeing, it's the Claymans Harpoon. Ice Spear scales with int, that's what makes it do more damage. So naturally we want maximum int, and this leads us to a few other conclusions. We want the weapon that it's on to also benefit from having int, right? So ideally we either want to put Ice Spear on it and set it to magic or frost to give it int, or we want to use a weapon that already naturally has int scaling. And for that second one, there's literally only one choice in the game, the Claymans Harpoon that drops from the Clayman down in the River Well once you farm them enough. And this gives us a real big advantage because we have this natural magic damage spear with the Ice Spear on, dealing that magic damage, scaling with int, but because we can set it to standard and keep all those benefits, we can then do part 2 of this build, which is have a big sorcery scaling glintstone staff in the other hand, and then Scholars Armament, the Claymans Harpoon, which then results in having a massive AR weapon for massive stabby damage, which combines perfectly to give you the Ice Spear at range, and then this as the follow-up, which is just as deadly. It's really self-synergistic, and I'm a big fan of it. Oh, and I've thrown Ranni's Dark Moon in here because, you know, we have the int to use it, and it helps with the frost build-up, but it's a good fight opener, especially with it getting faster in the patch too. So how are we boosting the damage of the Ice Spear? Well, as I said, 80 int, it does add a little bit of damage, it does scale with int, even if your weapon doesn't, though in this case, of course, it does. And then the main little extra that a lot of people miss is the RageGamingVideos Battle Mage set. Each piece of this armor adds 2% damage to magic-based Ashes of War, so 8% in total. And it's not massive, but it's a nice little bit, right? Then, of course, we have the usual suspects. The Shard of Alexander's Talisman for an extra 15% from the Alexander questline, the Magic Scorpion for an extra 12% from the Saluvis questline, the Ritual Sword Talisman from the Lux Ruins, because we're at range, we can be at full health more, an extra 10%, and then the final slot is kind of basically utility. I like to use the Dragon Crest to make up for the very low defensive values on the RageGamingVideos set, but put whatever you like here. In the Wondrous Physic, I like to have the extra stagger damage, because it's already really good stagger damage, and of course the 20% extra magic damage on the magic boosting tier. This all well rounds together then to be, well, a well-rounded build that takes advantage of this incredibly naturally powerful effective Ash of War and transforms it into a complete setup that is just incredibly good at destroying everything. Of course, once you get that frost pop, not only do you get that big burst of damage, they're now taking 20% more. Oh, well, their defenses are reduced by 20%, which will just ramp up the damage even further. So you drink your Wondrous Physic, you get your Terra Magica down, you engage with the Dark Moon, and then start popping off spears until they get very close to you, and then you can either still pop off spears because of the added hitbox, or switch to your Scholars Armament buffed weapon and do just as much damage too. And I have to say, the main area that this shines, the main aspect that I think this is surprisingly good in, is PvP. It's quite easy to hit people with this, and as I said, it does a ridiculous amount of damage, and in some cases just one-shots them. Also 2 hits, and they are getting frostbite, which is obviously really effective too, if they can even survive it. You can really run around, bait people into it, and because it is so quick to get off, you really don't need them to be doing a long animation for them to fall prey to it. You can also roll time with it quite well, and then having the backup powerful Claymans Harpoon to finish people off, or to duel in melee if you feel that's best, is really, really effective too. Oh, and to expand on the range front, it's kind of, well, longer range sibling, the Spectral Lance, does obviously go a lot further, but it also does a lot less damage. Interestingly, the Arrow's Reach Talisman, which only specifies it works on, you know, arrows and bolts, does work for Spectral Lance and gives it more range. However, sadly, I was really hoping, I tested it, but no, neither of the Arrow's talismans affect our Ice Spear, so that's a little bit of a shame. That would have been a neat little extra to add on to this. All in all, basically, Ice Spear is just a really good Ash of War. It's effective, it's not too expensive, and you can essentially just treat it as a pseudo Ice Lance sorcery to go through the game with. There isn't really a situation in which it falls down, or isn't that effective, or fails, and it's really, really worth keeping an eye on, worth using, and I think with all of this combined together, you end up with a really satisfying, fun experience. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you have been inspired to give it a go yourself. Please like if you did enjoy it, subscribe, hit the bell for more so you don't miss future Elden Ring builds, tips, tricks, funny bits, all that good stuff, and consider supporting the future of this channel on Patreon down below. It does keep us going, and it does mean the absolute world. A goodbye.
Josh, Cotton, and Hollow with the videos, dropping the humor like a hammer on your tippy toes, bringing entertainment on a daily arrangement to take our insanity and turn it into entertainment. Yes, I said entertainment twice, to reiterate that it is nice to look into your faces on a mostly daily basis when you let us in your homes to make the whole world a stage. Goodbye.